The possessed reaches the extremity of physical and spiritual corruption. Deliverance is still possible, but death is imminent.
It was an article, actually, that Todd and Richie had sent to me. They found this article from 2018. It was in a bunch of different publications. I think it was in USA Today and some others, that the number of requests for exorcisms had just skyrocketed in the last few years. And so as a result, the Catholic Church was going to open these new training schools around the world to train people in the art of exorcism. And immediately we were like, that's a movie.
The church, or, whether it be Catholic or Protestant, just about the role of women. There's a lot of conflict there, just naturally, about where do women fit in. I think it made it a really fertile area for a story.
The problem with the exorcism movie is that it's so narrow a genre. You kind of come to see set pieces, and the movie owes you those set pieces. But you always try to find your own spin on it so that the audience that has seen 25 other exorcism movies gets something fresh out of it.
I think that so many horror movies or exorcist movies are about the possession. Like, what is happening is this scary thing. But it's like, this film is more about the why. And I think the why is scarier.
It's an interesting area. I'm a person of faith. I grew up a Catholic, so I have a close relationship with my son's best friend. He became a deacon. I went to dinner with Jim, Deacon Jim Roop, and I said, listen, I need your help. Here's the world I'm building, and I know a lot of it's fantastical, but as much as possible, I want at least the hierarchy of the church to be accurate. I want the responses of the cardinal and the priest to be accurate. So he was fantastic. So he not only answered many of my questions that I had in the research, but he connected me with an exorcist in Indiana. After kind of telling me these horrific stories of these exorcisms he performed, a couple times he'd say to me, this is all I can tell you. There's things I can't tell you. And I'm thinking, that's what you can tell me? Like, what are you hiding? Because this is terrifying.
What hooked me about Anne from the beginning was that she loved her mother so much, her deceased mother, that she needed her to be possessed because the mother was abusive, and Anne just could not fathom having to deal with her mother being abusive towards her. So she had to put it on the demonic possession, which I thought was such a beautiful thing for a character. There was a vulnerability in there that immediately makes you care for her. And you almost hope that there is going to be demonic possession. Almost the worst thing, other than Anne having to face a demon, would be to find out there are no demons.
It was the thing inside her. She was possessed.
There was a very long casting process. We had to draw actors from all over the world, from Bulgaria, from London, from Ireland, from the United States, from Canada. We saw hundreds of actors for the role of Sister Anne. Many of them, if not most, with a stronger, more well-known resume than Jackie.
Once I read it and was introduced to this character, I wanted to play her so bad. I actually wrote a letter to the team after I auditioned, trying to convince them that I was the person that should play her.
I am probably the biggest fan of Jackie Byers that you will ever meet, but the ironic thing is that I want to take credit for casting her and finding her so bad. I had nothing to do with it.
There was another director involved in the movie prior to Daniel, and we didn't have a deal with Jackie, but we had got everybody to sign off on her.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Byers.
And they sent me Jackie's casting tape. And they said, look at this actress, we'd love it if you loved her. So me thinking like, oh, I'll find my own actress. I already don't like, I haven't even seen it, I already don't like her, you know? And I pressed play on the tape, and it was incredible.
I just held her for a moment, but I have kept her with me ever since.
She did such an amazing performance that I was like, we'd be crazy not to go with her.
She has such an incredible understanding of just the filmmaking process. You know, she's such a pro in that sense. She understands what we on the other side of the camera kind of need, and she brings those incredible instincts.
I don't know how many times with problems we were like, let's have Jackie fix it. She would just come up with solution. We can't figure out this and that. She'll go like, oh, let me just try something. And everybody was like, all right, let's do that. She is amazing.
Let's try it.
Jackie has a stillness about her that is very rare
to find with younger actors. She would just focus right in. She was almost mesmerizing. Working with Jackie was so easy. She really loved this part. I felt like she was really grateful to be there.
And she was such a cheerleader for the rest of the cast, because she, like the number one on the call sheet, always kind of sets the tone. You know, is the cast going to be antagonistic with the filmmakers, or are they going to be great, or whatever? And this cast was a dream because Jackie was a dream.
Jackie was just a naturally warm and giving and ultra-professional person, completely devoted. She became a very maternal figure, I think, for Posey Taylor, who played Natalie.
I don't know how, but we only met 6 weeks ago, and she's already like one of my best friends. She's really, really nice.
Casting child actors is always an interesting journey, you know, and it often does end up being a search. And, you know, we cast the net incredibly wide.
To find that young 10-year-old was a real challenge, and I think Jill went through about 750 actors.
Our British casting director said, okay, I've had it, I'm now going to go out into schools. This girl doesn't exist among the girls that we have in our casting folders, so we're gonna have to open it up and talk to schools, and she did. And Posey was suggested by her drama teacher.
And what was so incredible about Posey is that she's never acted before, at least on camera.
2 cameras, 1 flip.
Looks like a movie.
There's always an element of a leap of faith, particularly I think with a child actor when you're judging it really just based off an audition tape, and again, particularly one where we're doing everything virtually. I mean, it's not like Daniel could initially get in the room and sit down with her. You know, that was all done kind of over Zoom and, you know, the new world that we're living in.
I think the fact that she wasn't a school actor but could respond to direction so well was the main reason why it worked so well.
Posey Taylor is a complete mystery to me, where she gets that talent from. We do the first take, and it's as far away as it could possibly be, and you go like, oh, we'll never get there. This will take 28 takes. And then she does a second take.
Let me in!
And she nails it.
There's no stronger patriarchy than the Catholic Church, right? And with Father Quinn, he's obviously, you know, directly representing the church as one of the key mentor figures in the movie, but also he recognizes and respects the contribution that Sister Anne is bringing to the field.
This is about the inexplicable. So, and there is always the inexplicable. I am agnostic in many ways in my life, but I refuse to believe there is nothing. We are living in a time of trauma, and I think we're addressing it and giving it a sort of a structure, because the church is very theatrical.
But just an amazing job Colin did. He had to play conflicted, but you really felt he had this paternal relationship with her that I just think he executed so well.
There's a speech I make, which is, you know, the devil does shine his light on the deepest, darkest recesses of your mind and will expose your innermost secrets. And I think in the world we're in at the moment, it feels that it's distorted by secrets.
Those are classified.
The corruption is based on secrets, people's knowledge of other people's secrets, and it feels so of them now.
Colin has seen a lot and has been through a lot, and it's just left him with this beautiful kindness and tenderness and humor, you know, that he is in life. I think a total mentor figure, was a total mentor figure to the entire cast.
I think that he is a deep understanding for life and a beautiful perspective on it. And you just kind of want to seep that from him.
Because as some of you may already know, we have a female student in the class.
And we don't have much time.
What do you mean?
So what if there was a way that you could prove to them that you're right?
It was a very interesting balance that we couldn't make Father Dante so strong a sidekick that in the end it was, oh, the female character needs the strong male presence to help her out. That he takes the spotlight away from her strong enough as in what he can do, what his abilities are, what his ideas are, all that kind of stuff. So what he had was empathy.
His entire life has been about taking care of the women in his life. In the beginning of this film, it's finding a way to help his sister. And then as the film progresses, it becomes about, I think he supplements that desire to help his sister with a desire to help Sister Anne. She's breaking boundaries. The person who goes first takes all the arrows. And I think Dante is very attracted to that kind of courage.
Natalie's mother
believes that she is being possessed by some sort of evil entity. And I believe that the test results will prove otherwise.
And the other thing I loved about this was Virginia Madsen playing the doctor, the psychologist, because thankfully they do take into account that this could be mental health.
She's there to be skeptical, find a medical or psychological reason for anybody's symptoms. They don't want to be treating people who aren't really possessed.
That's based on fact, by the way. It's actually policy of the Catholic Church. In order to be approved for the rite of exorcism, you really do have to go through these psychological evaluations and physical evaluations to make sure that everything has been ruled out before they will approve the rite of exorcism. When Robert Zappia first started talking about that need to kind of check and make sure that there's no other possible explanation, that became clearly something that we had to put in the movie. And so it was actually from Robert's research that we found this cool role for Dr. Peters, and Virginia Madsen obviously did an amazing job portraying her.
Names were kind of thrown around as far as casting. When they told me that, hey, Virginia Madsen, she's cast, I was over the moon. One, because I'm a horror movie fan, so I remember, like, we're talking the Candyman days, right? So there was that, I'm a big fan of Sideways, everything she's done in between. So to have her as part of the cast, it was the cherry on top.
The setting of this movie was very interesting to me. It's a place where people are learning about their faith. But my character is a woman of science, and I thought that that was a very interesting juxtaposition. I think that Dr. Peters is very curious, very interested in the universe. She's very interested in, why are these people into their faith? I kind of felt like she was agnostic, but she was like, what makes them so certain that there's another world, a higher power?
You overestimated your competence and stepped right into the devil's snare.
I mean, Ben Cross. One, what an honor to have him in the film. And when he was cast, again, this, you're talking Chariots of Fire. You're talking, I was a fan of First Night. Nobody on the set was aware that he was battling an illness.
And the first thing I heard when he came to set for our shooting day was none of the costumes are fitting him anymore, because he had lost so much weight between the fittings and the shoot. So for him to conjure up that commanding presence, even in that fragile health, I think took a lot out of him. And he was so gracious and just so generous with me as a young director whom he could easily have dismissed. He was asking the right questions, the challenging questions. He wasn't for the easy kind of explanations. But once you had given him a satisfying answer, he was delivering it.
And yeah, to hear, only 10 days later that sadly he passed, the fact that, one, he chose to do the film, and then in the face of that kind of adversity to follow through with that commitment and to give it everything he has, I mean, it really was an honor.
Yeah, when he walked out of the room, I had that feeling this might have been the last scene that Ben Cross has ever shot, and that was an emotional moment for one of the greats like that to kind of walk off the stage and take his last bow was incredible to witness.
If you look at that commitment, his commitment to storytelling, filmmaking, and the craft of acting until the end of his life, it's like every actor should dream to be Ben Cross. It was an absolute privilege to work with him. It's an experience I will treasure for my whole life.
One of the things that Daniel really brought to the movie is this idea that you have priests coming from all over the world to train here, and you have this wealth of knowledge and this exchange of knowledge that's happening here, and I think that was really represented within the costumes.
I'm very interested in uniforms in general, and clergy vestments are uniform, so this was really exciting for me. Normally I always start with the research, the regulations of the church uniform, the whole history of clergy vestments, and then of course I start sketching things. As for the main character, Anne, most of the time she's wearing a nun's habit. This one's created from scratch. It's been inspired by elements from many existing orders. I took pieces like cuts and pleats or color or different elements and put them together to create something new, which goes away from the cliche of the black and white nun.
The gift that wardrobe gives me is that as soon as I step into those clothes, I actually don't see me anymore. It's like Jackie is gone from that. Like I feel like Anne.
To you,
it's not a sin to take a little victory lap.
The biggest challenge in this movie was to change Jackie Byers' hair color, because she was natural light brunette, and the idea was to make her hair look white, get her hair white because of the stress in her past. When we first meet with Daniel, we discuss how the possessed should look like. He didn't want to go too crazy or for the demonic look, so we stay as human as it's possible. Even though it's about possession, it's not an abstract or fairy tale story, it's a really real one.
We need to feel the pain and agony of the victim, of the possessed victim, even if in that moment they are the demonic force. We can never kind of allow them to be solely antagonistic, but it has to be almost a medical condition where we are cringing because we feel the pain and the anguish in the possession victim.
Yeah, the journey of bringing this film to the screen has been a bit of a miracle in itself. All the pieces fell into place relatively easily. It really did come together pretty flawlessly until COVID.
When we arrived in Bulgaria for the shoot, they had not had the numbers that we had in the US. So the vibe was kind of, this is nothing to take seriously necessarily.
Okay, this was March, mid-March. In 2 weeks, they were set to roll camera, and everything shut down.
We were all sent home, which was very unfortunate, but given everything that was happening in the world, obviously you kind of put it in perspective very quickly. We're very lucky just to get to make movies, and obviously there are more important things that were going on. What was fortunate about being that close to production was that when the studio felt that we could go back and make the film in a responsible way, we were actually one of the first films in the world to go back into production because we were so far along and so kind of ready to go. I mean, our sets were mostly built, cast in place, and all of our department heads and all the rest of it.
Was it June? They said, listen, Lionsgate, this is on the runway. Like the minute things open up, Lionsgate's going. And it was mid-July. They had people on a plane. They were like, we're shooting.
It was the first time I'd ever seen the international airport completely empty,
A zombie
desolate.
movie.
It was eerie.
And then it was like 4 or 5 people on an entire plane.
And then you get there, and then you have a 10-day quarantine, and you're only in your room. To me, playing Anne, who was very alone, a gift. You know, it really, really allowed me to like just get into that headspace.
They did it. They were filming August 1st, August 2nd through the middle of September. Having a film made during the height of COVID, you know, the 3 tests they were taking a day and the 6 feet apart and the masks and the shields.
No one was vaccinated yet. Like, we're gonna fly, like, we're in unknown territory of COVID still at that point when we decided to make this movie.
We had people working so hard to ensure that no one got sick, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think a single person tested positive for COVID on our set or on our crew, which is, if you think about when this was happening, is sort of miraculous.
It's been very well managed, I think. Everybody's got to wear masks, there's hand sanitizers everywhere. The sets are disinfected at the end of every day. I don't think it's affected the workflow that much, to be honest. I think, you know, everybody's managed to deal with what we've had to deal with.
The new traditions.
We had to do 3 COVID tests a week, and those were the old COVID tests with the long thing that you got stuck right into your brain, and then they twisted it around.
My nose is still sore.
Yeah. I mean, we were testing, I think, 3 times a week, so it was constant.
That COVID prevention stuff was taking time out of your day, because there need to be hand washing breaks, there needed to be testing breaks with the entire team. If you have a crew of 100 people that suddenly needs to go to testing, you know, so we had 10-hour days. Normally you have 12-hour days plus the lunch break. We had 10-hour days, which really cuts into what you can do within one day. And then of course you had the pods, so you had different colored scarves on you. And I wasn't allowed to talk to the green scarves in the group because I had an orange scarf and all that kind of stuff. And we had a health management company on set who had an eye on everybody and would always go, mask! And then people would pull up their masks.
I don't see the director's face, what he think. Usually when we spoke, when I have show and tell, I see his face and I see he like this, he don't like this. But now I don't know nothing. He with the mask. I don't see emotion and nothing. fucking COVID.
They needed to see my face somehow. Like, filmmaking is so much about connection with the cast, with the team, between the cast, all that. So to suddenly take half of your face away seemed catastrophic. And they had developed this, it was called the clear mask. And they sent me a box of it, the company. So I actually promised them to mention their name. Clear mask is what it's called. And they were developed for deaf people so that they can lip read. So that's why you have the clear mask.
You could see his face and his mouth. And I was like, thank you for doing that, because I needed to know when he was smiling or what he was expressing as my director. And he was just such a positive light, always encouraging. I think it buoyed us. I think that he kept us lifted up by his positive attitude. Everyone adapted. Everyone adapted to this new universe that we were in.
Obviously, a lot of movies and TV ended up being made during COVID, but I think we kind of felt like we were pioneers, knowing that we were kind of the test case. Could it be done? How much would it cost? What would be the hoops that we'd have to jump through every day? Could we keep everyone safe? And because we were the first, I think we kind of felt a little bit of pride of like, let's make this happen. You know, not only for our own sake, for the sake of this movie, but let's show the industry it can be done.
I think when we work together as a team, we can shift things, make things happen, and we can create an environment which is conducive to people to express themselves artistically, spiritually, human, and in any way they wish. And I think we managed to achieve that from the crew, the cast, about the scenario of the us and them of it's gone, it's done. We're all making the movie, we need to be together to do this, and I think this film has epitomised it.
We were location scouting, and we were looking at Sophia University, which is where 85% of the movie is set. And it's just this perfect combination of architectural beauty, but nothing was repaired, you know, everything was kind of run down. You felt the use everywhere. It felt like you could point the camera wherever you wanted, as long as you were inside of that building, and there was a believable world with a history.
Most of the look of this show has come out of having scouted here and picked on the university, which has given us a big bulk of our locations. And it gave us this nice opportunity to have a contrast of a retrofitted modern technology into an older building, which kind of is the sort of modern approach against old religion, as it were. In terms of collaboration, obviously, you know, the camera department is huge in terms of combining how they shoot it, how they light sets, and, you know, to create the overall atmosphere.
I used the Sony Venice, which I hadn't used before, but I thought it was a great camera. And Cooke lenses, I used Cooke anamorphics with a special flare one, so at least, you know, they had flares, and they're a lot flatter than a lot of the older anamorphics. I want to have a slightly cleaner, harder image for it. It's not important for me to operate on everything, but I enjoy operating. I actually find sometimes that it's just easier because I know what I want, rather than constantly always telling someone, you know, you can get operators who you completely trust because they're in line with what you want to do. But it just, in a way, is easier for me sometimes to operate. And on this, I knew there was going to be a chunk of handheld in it, but, you know, the Venice camera, the anamorphic lenses, you know, it's a reasonable amount of weight. So I realized that, you know, with a mask on, how difficult it is to actually operate. Because I never realized before about how you kind of control your breathing when you're moving with a camera. So like when you've got a mask on, it just makes it so much harder.
We had an incredible stunt team who was so enthusiastic, and they kept sending me previous videos where they had shot really well with their stunt people, this scene and that scene, and made suggestions beyond what I had in the storyboards. And wouldn't it be cool if we did that and that and that?
We don't have a fight scene, we don't have fight choreography. It's not an action movie. I think that it's something more what happened with the heroes inside their souls. From stunt perspective,
We have to help with our skills, like stunt guys with who I work, to create the characters.
3, 2, 1, action!
Posey, it's very clever and nice 10 years old girl. I didn't expect that she can cross on the walls. It's like 4 meters high and then jumps from there to the ground. She was on the wire, but anyway, some people are afraid. But I saw that she's very comfortable with this, and she did. She's great.
You okay? Yeah. And action!
Daniel brought so much more to this film than I anticipated. When I heard his name was in the running, I was thrilled. One, because I didn't think he'd revisit another Exorcist film after having made one of the iconic Exorcist films of the past 20 years. Daniel approaches things much like I do with writing, not just from the perspective of how do you capture something that's going to be the most frightening on screen, but who are the characters that you're putting into those situations?
So one of the first things that Daniel started talking about was how to give Anne more investigative beats. What's interesting about her character is that she comes in from this place of confidence and knowing for sure that possession is a real thing. But also she needs to kind of go through this journey of piecing everything together and finding out what happened to her past and bringing all these investigative beats into it that makes Anne grow.
We wanted it to be very much from her point of view, Sister Anne, taking the audience into this world with her. What does point of view actually mean? Because that's a term that's being thrown around a lot. Point of view, point of view, point of view, you know? What does that mean? But you can kind of break that down very clearly. It means which character gets to start the scene, who's the first character we see in the scene, who gets to end the scene, as in, do we end on her expression so that we see how she is digesting something? Does she have the close-ups, the closer shots? Are we closer to her eye line? Does she get to move the camera? So if she moves across the room, does the camera move with her or does it stay static and she has to cross-frame? In over shoulders, is her shoulder in the shot of the other person, but the other person's shoulder is not in her shot? You know, all these things are subtle little things, but they add up.
Daniel's a gentle soul. It comes across because I think the film has a sweetness to it. It's odd to say about a horror film, right? But I think at its core, there's a sweetness. There's a theme of love, of parental love, of light versus darkness, right? So I think you have to be a person who kind of embraces that in your day-to-day. And I think he embraces that as a director. I don't think he's tyrannical. He's very respectful of the people on the set and of the process. And that comes across, right? So it finds its way to the film.
Creatively, Daniel, what's so great is he just brings such an open mind to things. I know that initially, I think just based on the kind of the setting and the script, he saw the film in kind of one way. And then once we got to Sofia, Bulgaria, and we started looking at different locations, he really kind of found the movie in Bulgaria and made the best version of what the movie was where we were shooting.
Daniel's really funny and kind. He's a really good director because he has loads of ideas, but he always lets other people put their ideas in, which I think is really nice and good.
Daniel Stamm is an incredibly intelligent person, and he brings that intellect to his work. It's very seldom you get someone who's so left brain and right brain at the same time. He's very intelligent and very creative and artistic at the same time, and I think he brought that to the movie, but also joy. In the middle of a pandemic when we filmed this movie, he led the ship and made everyone laugh while he was doing it.
So Daniel Stamm, he's open to collaboration, absolutely, and open to suggestions. But he also knows exactly what he wants in as far as the story arc. He knows where he's going, he knows the whole thing. Because there's been times people will suggest something, go, what about this? And he goes, well, that's just a bit too early. That beat would come 3 scenes later. He's looking at this overall picture which he has, which exudes confidence in actors as well, especially me.
My preparation mainly comes from my German pessimism. Like culturally, being German, you're very pessimistic in terms of you always expect the world to end if you're not prepared. So I operate out of fear a lot. And even with shooting days, every day I come to set and I'm thinking, today is the day when everything will break down. And then in the end, in the evening, I was like, today was great. Oh, but tomorrow is going to be a real problem. And I do that throughout the entire production. So the more I can prepare, the better I feel and the freer I am in the moment to react to things that are happening in the moment.
We could. That's not a bad point. Let's do that.
You know, because I always know I have a plan to fall back on. That doesn't mean that we have to do that in the moment. If there's something better, I'm always up for doing anything else. But I want to have something in my back pocket that if everything else fails, we can do that and we'll be fine. So that's where the preparation comes from.
What Daniel really brought was this juxtaposition of the ancient and the modern. So I love that you're going into the hospital and you have all the modern medical equipment, but you're actually deep down inside these ancient Catholic buildings.
And Jonathan is just one of the greatest production designers you'll ever meet. He was on Alien and Empire of the Sun. He was like a carpenter on Indiana Jones. So it was really exciting for me to deal with someone with that experience from that generation.
I can't say enough about Jonathan. The final product of his creation of a scene that I had read 1,000 times. You imagine the scene, but then he would just elevate it. And then his attention to detail.
He added the sculptures, all of those statues he added.
Yeah,
those statues are all things that he built.
No, I think we've had a great sculpting department, and in our foyer of the university, we had this centerpiece, which originally in the script it was a painting of St. Michael the Archangel, but when we found this, fantastic oval foyer, there was nowhere really for the painting to go. So I said to Daniel, well, listen, why don't we build a big centerpiece sculpture? And he said, yeah, great, sure. And then I saw what the sculptors were starting to do, and I realized that, they were capable of doing some pretty good stuff. And the paint department, on top of that, did some fantastic marble finishes and so on. So having seen that, then that inspired me to try and, get some more sculptures into the show. There's a couple here right behind me praying. That was me a few weeks ago. I was bending down praying.
And I kept telling him, this is my favorite set. And he wouldn't say anything. He's very humble. And then I would see another set the next day. I'm like, this is my favorite set. No, this is my favorite set. But then the catacombs, I think that was his, he blew everybody away with the catacombs.
And the Bulgarian crew is just amazing. And they did wonders, especially building our third act set, which is all styrofoam.
This, the walls, everything except for the iron railings is styrofoam.
It's in stages. You see the set being built, and it's a big white styrofoam like model. And you're going, how is this going to work? And then you walk in one day and it's finished, and you're going, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, team.
If you're in a production design environment like that, where you can look anywhere, 360 degrees, and you see the detail that he put in there, I think it puts everybody on alert that they better do justice to the work that has already been done when they step on the soundstage for the first time.
The sets are incredible. The one we were just on there for the final battle is huge in size, and you can walk 360 degrees around it. It's completely functional for everything that you need to do and more, probably. I just took 5 minutes there when there was no one around, and I was just walking around looking at the detail that they put in these statues. It just looks stunning.
And it was just incredible to see that come to life. And Jonathan was like a kid in a candy store, because he couldn't believe that he got all this stuff for our movie. And he was just the nicest person to work with, super relaxed, super open to any kind of input, which again is a big deal for someone of his experience, to work with a young director and to take that director seriously and to care about that director's opinions without forcing anything on me. But he has so many ideas that he just goes, okay, if you don't like that idea, here are 3 other ones.
You got my invitation.
They say there's 3 times you write a film. There's the writer's first draft, there's when the director does his thing, and then there's the editor in post-production. So Tom Elkins, the editor, Tom took that story and not only made it as scary as possible in the way he cut those set pieces, but in the way he crafted the story. That finale, not only did he capture the emotion, but the horror of it all, the way that last scene came together, it was just fantastic.
That's one of those scenes where, there's some trial and error where you kind of try, let's try and cut it this way. Does this work? Well, that's not quite right. Let's try it this way. Ooh, we like this, what we did. So let's kind of build on that. And the biggest thing with something like that is keeping it grounded. It's the climax of the movie, and you really want to come at it with both barrels, but you got to remember that you don't want to go too far with it because you'll lose the audience and they'll think, oh, this is just all too crazy.
Tom Elkins is just the most lovable, funnest, smartest guy, and he has edited so many horror movies that he can just tell you about the craft in every moment. And he can go, your impulse right now is to do this, and I understand that from this and this. Let me tell you about what happened when we did that with Child's Play, or with Annabelle, or with whatever.
And I knew sort of the kinds of tricks that he has. I don't necessarily know how to do the tricks, but he knows how to do the tricks. And he always finds ways to, if something's not quite working, or you need another way to just spin it on its head or whatever, he's always got a thought about how to achieve that. His wealth of knowledge in terms of the genre, but also in terms of working with people and people skills is just invaluable. I worked with Tom on 4 prior movies, and he even directed a movie for us.
When I directed, having been an editor was very much a part of what informed me every day on set. Now that I'm editing most of the time, having been a director informs me. With scary movies, it's always a balance, because on one hand, you want to make a movie that is scary, but it won't be scary without the audience being invested in and caring about the characters and their story. But you can't have too much of characters and story without enough scares.
That's nightmarish.
I would say it's a treacherous balance of tone, tension, and character and story. Kind of a challenging puzzle to figure out.
You work with a lot of people very closely, but rarely ever totally alone in isolation as a director. With the editor, usually you sit in this tiny black box for months together. So it's a real marriage. So you better love the person you are working with. You know, he's like, in my case, he's your therapist, because every time you want to jump off a roof and think this will never work, he is the one to talk you down. He is the one to kind of try stuff and see stuff in your footage and intentions that you didn't even know you had. And Tom Elkins could not be a better guy.
After Wrap, when now I'm working with a director, he would essentially be in the room virtually with me.
During COVID, he was in Omaha and I was in Germany and in Los Angeles, and we weren't in the same room.
It's interesting. I've never met Daniel. Never met him in person. It was an interesting process and certainly a first. I've done movies besides scary ones, and those are super rewarding. But damn, the scary ones are fun. Horror movies are a blast.
Jackie Byers. Jackie Byers sets this movie apart from other movies. She's delivering a strong, well-crafted, multi-dimensional performance in a genre that has seen it all. And I think her performance, and I think the character of Anne, is a first. If you're a horror fan, this is sort of an integral viewing experience.
The story of Sister Anne coming up against the patriarchy of the Catholic Church was really an interesting place to explore, and I really think that we wanted to show all the different dynamics when you're in such a male-driven world. And I think each character kind of had a different relationship with Sister Anne and a different way of expressing that patriarchy.
The aspect of prejudice against women was one that fascinated me from the beginning about the story, and it was something I wanted to explore, not something that we hit the audience over the head with, kind of in a lecturing way or preaching way, but just in a way that was almost common sense to me. If you have someone who's willing to do the job, and has the talent to do the job, because she's a woman, does that prevent her, does that negate her from being able to do it? In the church, as it stands now, it does.
It was an excellent opportunity to take a look at what if we had this strong female protagonist that went through this journey. I think if we're using art to hold up a mirror to society right now and have a conversation, I think that's the conversation that this specific piece of art will evoke. I think people will talk about this. And so I'm proud of it in that way.
You know, technically speaking, you're not the first female exorcist.
So the first in 7 centuries. I'll take it.
Every movie has to have a sense of teamwork. It's kind of like a sudden marriage with everybody who doesn't know one another. Everybody decides, I'm gonna make this work. We're gonna be, form a great team. It's like a circus that comes together for a few weeks or months, and let's all pull in the same direction. And I think COVID actually kind of helped cement that on this movie, made the teamwork even more necessary.
I'm really, really proud of this film. And the making of it it felt like I ran 5 marathons. It was exhausting, but the reward at the end of it was so big.
Jackie was so clearly Sister Anne from the very first audition tape that she did for the movie. The freshness that she brings to the role, and it's also, she's just such a lovely person and such a pro. It was just an absolute joy to work with her.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Jacqueline Byers.
Picture of
Sister Anne.
Jacqueline Byers.
I'm really proud of this movie, and that is because of all the work that you guys did, and this has been a really special experience for me. And you guys are all just really good people, and I want to keep making movies with people like you, so thank you so much for this experience. I'm just really proud of this movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for all your hard work. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Because of the COVID interruption, it feels like I have been spending the last 2.5 years of my life in that exorcism academy. You know? One more reason why I can't thank Jackie enough to be the beautiful, stunning woman and great actress that she is, because I have been staring at her face for the last 2.5 years. And it's been a joy. I could not have been asking for a better group to go on this journey with. But now it's done, and that's okay.